Welcome to my interpretation of a woodworker. So about a month ago, my wife got a new job. Very excited for her. Everything was going great. She is super excited about the new career path that she's chosen, and I'm excited to encourage her on it. And in doing so, I asked if there was anything that she wanted as a gift. I feel like it's pretty customary for people to provide gifts for their loved ones whenever they do achieve something. Even get a new job is an achievement. And she came back to me after a little while and said, you know what, I actually do have something that I would like you to make, but if it's cheaper to buy it, let's just buy it instead. She said, I want a thread spool rack, so that way she can take her thread spools and put them all together and they're not inside of a, well, I have a tackle box, which I'm sure that I'll show you here soon, that she has them in currently, just so that way they are easier to access. And I was excited and looking forward to it because that's something that I can attempt to make as well. There's a lot of new techniques, a lot of new things that I can learn while doing it that would be incredibly helpful for not only her, but also myself. So with that being said, I took on the task of researching and seeing different kinds of models and finding things that looked good, how the spool rods were put in and how they were constructed, and I kind of had a general idea of what I wanted to do in order to make her this thread spool rack. So one part of growing a business, in this case learning an entirely new craft, is I believe making practical, functional practice pieces. So that way when I am learning, I can also use those things in my home and see what I like about them, what I don't like about them, what I would do different, what I wouldn't do different, and use that as a way to build up a collection of pieces that I can showcase myself with. And I wanted to practice making this spool rack. And I, again, drew up a rough idea. Basically, I wanted a box with miters in it, so that way the shelves could sit at an angle, and then I can take the spool rods and set them up at 90 degrees to that angle, and it would be easy to move the spools on and off of the rack itself. So a few things I had trouble with at first was knowing exactly how to cut the rabbets. The first attempt that I made actually went pretty poorly. I actually cut it on the face of the frame, which was not exactly ideal unless I wanted to go all the way through the wood, which I did not. Although that would be an interesting design. Anyways, I wanted to go on the cheek of the frame actually, so I had to actually instead set a miter gauge to about 30 degrees is what I chose, and run it through at the blade at a very low depth, which worked out. Actually, I was able to do the first piece incredibly well. You'll notice I said first piece. That's because the second piece, I did the same thing, but they needed to mirror each other, which I didn't know how necessarily to do immediately. I didn't put two and two together, which later, upon experimenting with another piece that I also ruined, I figured out that I actually need to go on the other miter slot of my table saw to do the opposite angle at, again, 30 degrees. It just took me a little while to figure that part out. So, mistakes were made. Luckily, I was able to use the original piece in order to duplicate this piece as well and make them square, and everything was good to go and even. One thing I did learn from the box that I was creating was I actually taped the pieces together to cut them through, because I wanted to make sure that all of the miters were at the same exact length, so that way when I put those together they would fit correctly. One thing that I wish that I had would be a drill press, and I will purchase one actually probably very soon, so that way it's a lot easier for me to drill straight 90-degree holes inside of all of these boards. Using the hand drill was very tedious and repetitive, and I didn't want to lay out the lines, which I should have, but even then, when I used my jig, it was inconsistent. I think using a drill press with a fence would allow me to have the same depth on every single one, as well as a for sure 90-degree insert into the wood itself.
Beats, make it funky. Beats, make it funky. Beats, make it funky.
A shooting star. Darling, a shooting star. I won't care. A shooting star. Darling, a shooting star. I won't care. A shooting star.
A few moments later.
Shooting star. A shooting star. I won't care. I won't care. A shooting star.
So the glow up went actually incredibly easy for the outside of the frame. Again, because I taped all those miters together, they were exactly the same length. I also brought in my neighbor to help me out because she was very interested in what I was doing. She's very small and great and cute and likes to meow a lot, and she thought everything looked fantastic. At least I'm assuming that's what she was saying because I don't technically speak cat, but she didn't bite me or scratch me, so I'm assuming she didn't say anything was wrong. Can I show you? It's okay.
A shooting star.
What do you think of this, huh? Yeah. Very good cat.
A shooting star.
Alright. That's all that I can do for now. I'll let you down, okay?
A shooting star. A shooting star. A shooting star. A shooting star. I won't care. I won't care.
Okay. It's a little tricky. I have to be able to get these in here. But the bad idea far enough to where another one can easily come in, but I need to be able to get these positioned in the same place and allow for spools to come in and out. These are too tall, so I'm going to cut them down.
A shooting star. I won't care. I won't care.
So this is the setup. I'm gonna cut lengths of those dowels off, all in one swoop. You'll see how it goes. So one really good thing that I did learn, and actually InkSwitch had previously commented on my video, was I actually do have some brad guns. I did actually use those in this project to help hold the shelves together while the glue was drying. It made it incredibly easy to just, instead of having to clamp those, just pin them and let the glue dry and let it set up overnight. So this is upside down, but I ran into a problem with the French cleat. I needed to sit flat here so it can slide in. But the problem is there's too much material here. We need to remove that. I'm going to use a rabbit or a router so I can shave off pieces of this, and then I might have to remove some with my little saw. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. It's going to be fun. It's going to get sawdust literally everywhere. Perfect. Send that later. Goal achieved. Alright. So this one and this one are too far back, and I can't get the spool on. The rest of them I can. Our example spool for this type. That can go on for these ones can't. So one thing that I didn't mention here was that I wanted to remove the bevel to make it easier to access the pegs, because even with the pegs being further in, or further, even with the pegs being further to the front, there was still not enough room with the bevel that I had cut previously, so I actually sanded two of the bevels off to make room for some larger spools. What I would do to fix that instead would be actually to space the shelves out and make the rods a little bit shorter. I would say about a third of the height that you need is about what is right. A half seemed to be a bit too tall. A third seemed to be enough to where things weren't going to come off easily without being forcefully pulled. And I think that was about the perfect height. I'll put some glamour shots in, but when I showed my wife the project and I showed it to her throughout the entire thing, she was absolutely in love with it. She's actually using it now, which I will show you some photos at the end of her putting her thread on. She, again, loves the spool rack. I think in the future, she'll obviously need a larger one, so I can definitely do this one better. But for now, this works. She has all of her thread up on the wall. She doesn't have to go into her box in order to get her spools. And there's a few things I think that I would definitely change. One is adding some bobbin access, so that way you can have your bobbin along with the thread. And I feel like that would help out a lot as far as making sure that she's not having to waste thread by rethreading bobbins.
Doing this the best that I can.
So earlier I had Chelsea tell me approximately what height she wanted this at, and I used my stud finder to find the stud. I then took my level, and in the middle of that I kind of set the edge until it hit right where I wanted it to be, which is right here. And you can see there's a mark here, there's a mark here. I'm going to drill those out. These are 16 inches apart approximately. So again, this was a practice piece. I hope you all liked all the mistakes and things that I've learned throughout the entire process. If you have any comments, questions, answers to maybe something that would have made this easier besides what I've mentioned, please go ahead and do so. Please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next project.